Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about lane merging onto freeways and changing lanes. A lot of the techniques are the same for both, so that's what we're going to talk about tonight in the presentation. So lots of people getting their license this week. If you haven't seen the map of success already, Corey will put that up for you and we can talk about that and celebrate all of the people who have been passing their license and been successful on doing that. So that's really great. And Corey's here tonight, Bricks for Wheels, and Corey is the moderator here, and we're going to talk about that. So lots of good stuff going on here and lots of great information for new drivers who are working towards a license and those types of things. So really exciting. And yeah, we're not going to spend too much time chatting about... sorry, I got distracted there by YouTube. So 0 people watching, which is unusual when there's so many people on the channel. I'm surprised there's anybody here. But anyway, carrying on, soldiering forward, and doing what we need to do in terms of live stream. Jenny's here. Hi, Jenny. How are you? And where are you tonight, Jenny, that you're getting your license? So yes, people will filter in here. So I'm just going to talk a little bit. One of the couple of things I've had this week, I've had a lot of stuff about lane merging and what to do when you get on the acceleration lane and if people won't let you over and you're not being successful in moving over. First of all, you have to accelerate up to highway speed and you have to find your gap on the freeway or highway or interstate or motorway or wherever you're merging onto, and you have to aim for that gap, and you need to adjust your speed as you're coming out on the acceleration lane. Or sometimes you can start accelerating when you're still on the on-ramp, but then out onto the acceleration lane and get yourself going. And you have to adjust your speed so you can get out there. As well, it's kind of a team effort because the people on the freeway, the highway, they also need to be moving over and they need to be adjusting their speed, because if they're in that inside lane on the right-hand lane, for those of you driving on the right, if you're on the left-hand lane, if you're in the left lane on the highway or freeway or motorway, then you need to start looking where the cars are coming on and they're merging, because you know, you can be right or you can be dead right, you know, because I've had lots of people say to me, oh, well, was it my fault and I had the right of way? Well, yeah, if you get into a crash, there's going to be significant consequences about that crash. So for, you know, just letting off the throttle or moving over to the other lane is really going to help people out and keep people safe and keep them from being involved in a crash. So Carson is here. Carson passed his road test. That's really great. Carson, where were you successful in passing your road test there? Sylvan. Awesome. So sorry to hear about your unsuccessful attempt there, Sylvan, but with a little more practice, we're confident that you're going to get it the next time. So that's really great. All right. So we're just going to head over to the presentation here real quick, PowerPoint presentation, and we'll go over that information here just shortly. So just bear with me while I move over to the PowerPoint presentation. There we go. Get rid of that and get rid of that. And here we go. Okay, so merging onto highways or freeways and talking about that and some of the things that you should do, because this is a fairly daunting thing for new drivers. It's kind of like doing a hockey stop when you start ice skating. It's one of those things that you just sort of got to do, but we're going to break it down and give you the techniques and skills that you need to do. Now, one other thing is that I can't answer comments while I'm doing the presentation because I need another screen here, and we're working on that other screen. And once I get that, then I can answer comments while we're doing the presentation, but right now I can't do that. So down to the next slide here. For those of you who are new to Smart Drive Test, I'm Rick August. I was a truck driver through most of the 1990s running over the road, and I delivered, for the most part, LTL freight, what they call LTL. It's less than load. So essentially it's 5 or 6 drops on a truck in and out of New York City and New Jersey and other places and whatnot. In an attempt to come off the road, I became a licensed driving instructor in 1997 with a specialty in air brakes, and I'm just about up with the air brake manual for those of you working towards a CDL license, and I'm hoping to have that up for the beginning of August. It's at the graphic designer and it's going to the proofreader next week, so we're really close on getting that completed, and I'm excited about that. In 2000, I went back to university, finished my undergraduate degree, and got accepted into a doctorate program at the University of Melbourne in Australia, and completed a doctorate in policing and traffic, and specifically policing as it relates to traffic, and that's what my PhD is in. And during that time when I went to university in Australia, I also drove buses for Greyhound and V-Line, which is the regional bus line there in Australia. So I have a bit of experience driving coaches as well as trucks. So this week on Thursday rather, I got the video up on tire failure. It's basically a video about tires and how to buy tires for your car, and the crucial role that tires play in the handling of your vehicle and keeping you safe. And I talked to Gary Krieger here in Vernon, British Columbia at Tireland, and Gary gave us some really great information about tires and what kind of tires you should buy and some of the things that you should consider and some of the safety factors, and specifically about tires that are more than 8 years old in your vehicle can present a danger to you. So get those off your vehicle if they're more than 8 years old. So if you haven't seen that video, definitely have a look at that, and Corey can get the link up for you there, and really great information there in that video. All right, so parts of the freeway when you're accelerating onto the freeway. There's the on-ramp, the acceleration lane, continuity lines, and then on the freeway you have slow lanes, driving lane, and fast lanes if there's more than 2 lanes. And essentially the on-ramp is the part of the road that transitions you from the highway out onto the acceleration lane. And then you get to the acceleration lane, and that's the straight part along the side of the freeway that allows you to accelerate. As well as acceleration lanes, you're also going to have deceleration lanes when you're getting off the highway or freeway. And you know that you're on the acceleration lane because for those of us that drive on the right side of the road, on the left side of your vehicle, there are going to be continuity lines. And you can see the continuity lines here in the image a little bit. Continuity lines are half as long and twice as wide as regular road markings. So you know that they are continuity lines. And if the continuity line is on the left side of your vehicle, it means that the lane that you're in is either going to exit or it's going to end. So if you're in an acceleration lane, you know that it's going to end. So eventually you have to get up to speed. As you're coming out onto the on-ramp and the acceleration lane, you need to be looking out on the freeway, and you need to be looking for your spot, and you need to be picking your spot, and you need to be aiming for that spot. So that means that you need to be adjusting the speed of your vehicle to match the flow of traffic and to either accelerate in front of the vehicles that are already on the freeway, or you need to be slowing down a little bit. So you need a slower speed than the traffic speed so that you can merge in behind the vehicles out on the roadway. That's what you need to be doing. And then once you get onto the freeway, if there's 2 lanes, there's a slow lane and there's a passing lane, and you should drive in the slow lane unless you're passing. If you are in the slow lane, the thing that you need to keep in mind when you're on the freeway, motorway, or interstate is that you're going to be sharing space with merging and accelerating or decelerating. Vehicles that are getting on the freeway and vehicles that are getting off the freeway. So you need to take note of where on-ramps and off-ramps are located as you're driving along these limited access highways. If there's more than 3 lanes, ideally you want to drive in the center lane. That way you're not going to be impeded by this merging and this traffic that's getting on the freeway and traffic that's getting off the freeway. And then finally, if there's 3rd lane, that's going to be your fast lane and your passing lane, and that's where you want to drive. Now, if you're in a big truck, you can't drive in that 3rd lane. We called it the big dollar lane when I was driving big trucks, so know that. So the first 2 lanes are going to be the lanes for trucks if you didn't know that already. Now, driving, as we know and as I've said before, is a social activity, and you have to give a little bit to get along. And most of us should be professional drivers. If you're on my channel and you've heard me talk, I talk about this all the time. You can be right or you can be dead right. And I've had a conversation with a truck driver this week who was adamant that if he was on the freeway, he didn't have to move over. And eventually, I realized that arguing with him was a little bit like wrestling a pig in mud, that after a while you realize that the pig in mud just likes to be able to wrestle with you. So I just deleted his comment and left him off the channel, because there was no way he was going to believe that he should have let off the throttle and slowed down in order for this other vehicle to merge onto the roadway. The bottom line is that, you can be right and you can really push that, and yes, maybe you're going to win in a court of law, but at the bottom line is that you are risking other people's lives. The definition of a professional driver is somebody that knows that other people are going to make mistakes on the freeway or highway and compensates for those mistakes, and when they happen, they back off, they give them some space, and they simply say, oh, that happened, and they carry on with their day and nothing really happened. That is the definition of of a professional driver, and all of us want to be professional drivers. So I've already talked about this, about getting onto the freeway. Accelerate to speed, look for your spot, aim for your spot, and adjust your speed as needed as you get closer and closer to moving out onto the highway. And I've had lots of smart drivers ask me the question, well, what happens if I get to the end of the acceleration lane and there's no room there? If you get to the end of the acceleration lane and there's no room there, you've misjudged the gap. You haven't aimed for the gap on the freeway or highway. And there's lots of space, as you can see here in this image. Coming down on the on-ramp in the acceleration lane, you should be looking out onto the freeway and finding your space that you're going to aim for and adjusting your speed the whole time that you're in the acceleration lane as you're gaining speed to get out onto the highway or freeway. Now, other vehicles that are on the highways and freeways, if you're in that inside right lane, you know that you're going to be sharing space with vehicles that are coming out onto the highway or freeway, and you're going to be sharing space with vehicles that are getting off the highway and freeway. And if you can, you need to move over into the other lane so to allow merging vehicles to get out onto the roadway. If you can't get over into the other lane, as often happens because there's other vehicles beside you, then you need to simply either let off your speed or you need to accelerate to accommodate these vehicles that are trying to merge out onto the freeway, because sometimes they're not going to be looking, and you as the professional driver are going to make space and allow them and help them out. And oftentimes you only need to slow down 3 or 5 miles an hour. You don't really need to slow down a lot. Oftentimes it's just a matter of lifting your foot off the throttle for a few moments. You're going to slow down enough and the person's going to be accelerating, so you're going to be slowing down and they're going to be accelerating. So there's going to be no conflict of space at all. And this is really what defines a professional driver going up and down highways, freeways, interstates, and motorways. Consequences of having a crash, and this is really what I come down to, and I had another smart driver a couple of weeks ago ask me about that, saying that most crashes are the fault of one person. And yes, in the legal definition of the law, one person is at fault. But if you are involved in a crash, there's all kinds of property damage. Oftentimes your vehicle is going to be written off. This vehicle here in this picture would definitely be written off, and they're simply going to buy the vehicle from you and give you some money, and that money may or may not replace your vehicle. That's if you're lucky enough that you're not injured or somebody wasn't killed in the crash. And as well, you've got the time and energy of being without a vehicle. You've got the time and energy of getting your vehicle fixed, and how much running around and dealing with bureaucracy is all of that going to take. So think seriously about the next time that you think, oh, I've got the right of way and I've got to go. What are the consequences of risking other people's lives on the roadway? What are the consequences of being involved in a crash? Even if it's a minor fender bender, how much work are you going to do to get your vehicle fixed and repaired? Even if the other person was wrong and you get it all paid for in the end, is it going to be worth it? Probably not. So think seriously about that when you're merging and lane changing and those types of things. And then eventually what you want to do is you want to try and have freeway harmony. And some of the things that you can do to have more harmony while you're driving up and down the freeway: take a break every couple hours, get out and walk around, those types of things. If you're traveling with children and whatnot, get off the freeway, get into a playground where the kids can get out and run around. You know, have activities for the children in the car and those types of things and whatnot. And then finally, one of the safest things you can do on the freeway is drive in the spaces between the clusters of vehicles. And you can see that here in this image here. Up here is a cluster of vehicles, and these vehicles back here being safe because they're driving in between the clusters of vehicles. And the other thing about this is you want to be driving in this center lane with 3 lanes of traffic. That's the safest place for passenger vehicles to be driving. Obviously, if you're in a big truck, you can't be driving in that center lane. You got to be driving in the right-hand lane. But take note of where the on-ramps and off-ramps are. That way you're going to be able to adjust your speed and watch out for people that are merging and who may not be merging correctly and may conflict with your space on the roadway, and you can adjust your speed accordingly to help them out and help them get out onto the roadway, and everybody can stay safe. So good luck on your road test if you got one coming up, and if you're learning how to merge, good luck with that as well. So we'll just switch back over here, and I didn't change the transition. Yeah, and Corey's probably yelling at me, telling me that I didn't put the presentation up. There we go. Yeah, Corey put the video up. There we go. Yeah, you can't see the presentation. I see that. Yep. Okay. Tommy, I love driving on the 407 in Ontario. Usually there is not a whole lot of traffic, but it's pretty expensive. Yeah, it is one of those toll roads. And what was I going to say? Ontarians, Canadians for the most part, are not used to toll roads. Whereas on the eastern seaboard of the United States, all people are used to driving on the roadways. Hi, Laura. She's from New York City. Jose. Okay, Jose. So you're taking. Sorry. What did you say there? Any tips to take my written test? Yes, Jose. So what you want to do is you want to go online and you want to do the online practice test. When you're getting about 80-90% consistently on the online practice driving test, that's what you want to do. Is you want to then you're prepared to go and do that. Don't read the driver's manual cover to cover, because the driver's manual is boring because it's been written by bureaucrats. So what you want to do is you want to go and take the practice driving test questions. You want to identify the gaps in your knowledge. Go and look up those bits in the driving manual, and then come back and do the practice driving test again until, like I said, you're getting 80 or 90% consistently. All right, the Wheel of Gaming. I've been trying to catch one of your live streams. I'm 30 years old and still don't have a license. I'm terrified of driving. I'm trying to work on getting a permit to try and conquer my fears. I want to thank you for your videos, and you've helped motivate me to start trying to drive. That's awesome. I'm really glad we could help out. And if you have any questions or anything, whatnot, we're certainly, helping you get motivated and those types of things. And as well, gaming there, have a look at the fear and anxiety video. That goes into some good information about anxiety, about driving and overcoming that, and just getting familiar with the vehicle and becoming more comfortable with exposing yourself to being able to drive the vehicle and those types of things. Carson, do you know anything about getting a motorcycle permit with a junior's driver's license in Pennsylvania? I'm 16, soon to be 17. So Carson, basically getting a motorcycle permit, I believe that Pennsylvania has a GLP program for the motorcycles, and it's very similar to getting your car license. You got to go and write a permit. Once you write your permit, then there's conditions that are in place for driving a motorcycle. I don't know exactly what those conditions would be for you to work towards getting a full license, but just have a look in the manual or go down to the Department of Motor Vehicles and ask them what they are. It's usually in the driver's manual about the criteria that you have to fulfill in order to go for a full motorcycles license. So have a look at that as well. All right. Okay. Oshawa. Tommy's in Oshawa. There we go. So Carson passed his road test in Harrisburg in Pennsylvania. The test went smooth. As long as you pay attention, you'll be fine, of course, when you follow the rules. Yes, and know that being able to drive is very different from passing a road test. Passing a road test requires a different skill set than just being able to drive a vehicle. Unfortunately, I had a smart driver a couple weeks ago who said that she was driving every day back and forth to work and whatnot, but was unsuccessful on the test. Unfortunately, she didn't take a practice driving test and didn't realize that there were different requirements for the road test. And for those of you going for a road test, there's 4 components for a road test: speed management, observation, communication, and space management. So speed management, you have to do the posted speed limit, the flow of traffic, whichever is less. Space management, don't get near anything, don't get near other fixed objects. You have to stop in traffic so you can see the tires of the vehicle in front of you making clear contact with the pavement. You have to stop at the correct position at stop sign intersections, before the stop line, before the crosswalk line, before the sidewalk, or at the edge of where the 2 roads meet are the places that you have to stop in terms of space management. And you have to follow other traffic at the correct following distance, which is 2 to 3 seconds under ideal conditions. And the reason that we use time is because it's relative, and the faster you go, the bigger the space is between you and the other vehicles. That's the reason we use time. Communication, you need to communicate with other vehicles and other road users via horns, lights, hand gestures, appropriate hand gestures. Don't tell other road users you're number 1 on a road test. You won't be successful. And eye contact and the position of your vehicle on the roadway are ways that you communicate with other road users. And then finally, you have to be able to scan effectively as well when you're doing your road test. And when I say scan effectively, before you reverse, you need to do a 360-degree scan, make sure there isn't anybody around your vehicle. You need to shoulder check. effectively 90 degrees out to the side, either left or right, whichever way you're moving the vehicle. You need to be able to do lane changes. You need to be able to scan effectively and have a scanning pattern in place while you're driving and keep that scanning pattern going the whole time that you're driving. So these are some of the things that you need to do to be successful on a road test. All right. Ryan, how are you, Ryan? Good evening. And Laura, thank you so much for that. I'm happy to hear that you're watching the videos and learning how to drive and stay safe. And Tommy, I was 19 when I got my G1. I was 25 when I got G2, and I got full G at 29. It's never too late. Yeah, that's for sure, Tommy. You're absolutely right. You will become more comfortable with driving as you keep doing it. Best of luck. Yes, thank you for that encouragement, Tommy. That's really great. Really great for gaming there. And, you know, it's the same thing, Tommy. It's never too late to get your license. I moved to Australia. I was 35 when I went back. I went back to university when I was 35, so it's never too late, right? You're going to get your license at some time there, so that's really great. Okay, Laura, any tips on driving to New York City from South Carolina? I'm still a new driver. I live in South Carolina, but I'm from New York. Yeah, Laura, one of the things that I would suggest to you is to just, if you're not familiar with driving around New York City and it's a bit daunting for you, make sure you do your navigation and your route planning before you head into New York City. That way you know where you're going to be going, and that's going to relieve a lot of your anxiety because, you know, there's nothing worse than driving into a new place and not knowing where you're going and those types of things. It's a lot different when you're taking transit or, you know, whatnot, or walking, because when you're driving, you kind of got to make split-second decisions about whether you're going to turn left or right, or those types of things. And for you driving into New York City, you're going to be on the New Jersey Turnpike, you're going to be on toll roads, the bridges, and those sorts of things. So you're going to have to pay tolls and whatnot. So have a look at that and plan out your route before you go there. And Corey will get the video for you on route planning and navigation, and that'll help you out when you're driving into New York. Renee, no, you cannot use Navigator during your road test because the examiner is going to tell you whether to go left or right and where to go and those types of things. Alan, is a U.S. driver's license valid to drive through Canada to Alaska? Yes, it is, Alan. You can use your American license to drive in Canada, just about anywhere in Canada. There's lots of people who drive through Canada, particularly those coming from Detroit going to upstate New York. Oftentimes they'll drive across the border into Canada and they'll drive along the 407 and then they'll go into upstate New York. It's a bit of a shortcut for them. And Americans will do the same thing. You're most welcome, Laura. My pleasure. So, yeah, it's quiet tonight. I didn't think the Canadian holiday would have that much of an impact on the live stream here tonight. So, the live stream is looking a little dark, so just bear with me here just one second. I'm just going to kick it up a little bit here. So, yeah. There we go. Okay, thanks for that. So, gaming. It did not take me too long to become comfortable in the city. About a year. It took me a bit longer to get used to the limited access highway. Yes, Tommy, the limited access highways can be a bit interesting. Nana, thank you so much. You are awesome. Speaking to me that I'm awesome. I really enjoy your comments and thank you for the compliment. That's really great. Yes. Okay. So, Willa Gaming, one of the things that I suggest to you, and Corey will get the video up here for you, is the learning exercises in the Learn to Drive video, which is basically going out and getting some of those 36-inch, 1-meter tall pylons from a rental shop and going into the parking lot and driving around a parking lot and doing, you know, acceleration, working with the brake, working with the steering wheel, and that will make you much more comfortable when you get out onto the roadway, because if you can understand those fundamentals, once you understand those fundamentals, it's going to be a lot easier to drive when you're on the roadway because you've got some mastery of the primary controls in the vehicle. And that's really what you need to be comfortable with, is how much brake do you need to apply? How much throttle do you need to apply? How much do I need to turn the steering wheel? Because some smart drivers who are working towards their license, they're asking me when they're turning, how much do I turn the steering wheel? If you're asking me how much you are turning the steering wheel, I can't give you an answer to that because different corners are going to have different configurations, and for some of them you're going to have to turn the steering wheel more, and for others you're going to have to turn it less. And that's only something that you're going to be able to figure out when you go into the parking lot and you start working with the vehicle in the parking lot. And that is really the key to learning how to drive, because once you have mastery of the primary controls, that's really going to help you learn how to drive. So do that first and foremost, and have a look at that. And so Corey's put the videos up there that's really great on route planning and road trips. So have a look at that. Ryan, doing well driver in higher traffic areas, hoping you have a tip or two about judging gaps while driving. Yeah, Ryan, there is a judging gap video here, and it was something that I really struggled with when I did do that video, because judging gap is something that is experiential, and it's really something that if you can work with another driver is going to be easier to learn, because another driver will be able to mentor you and say to you, no, that gap's not big enough, or yes, that gap is big enough. One of the things that I found in trying to verbalize that and trying to portray that in a video was how far is 2 seconds away when a vehicle is traveling at 60 kilometers an hour, or how far away is a vehicle when at 3 seconds when it's traveling at 100 kilometers an hour. And that's difficult to convey to drivers when you're not actually there in the vehicle with them, because that's, as I said, an experiential thing, and it's something that you should work with another driver. If you're having difficulty judging gap and you're feeling that you don't have enough gap when you're trying to turn left or you're trying to merge onto roadways and things like that, I strongly suggest that you find somebody who's got some experience with driving and just work with them. Maybe, you know, a couple of hours, go for a drive and do some turns and do some lane merging and those types of things. And that, I would say, would probably be the fastest way for you to learn how to judge gap effectively when you're driving. All right. Eric, should you slow down on potholes during a road test? Excuse me, just one moment here. I wouldn't aim for the potholes, Eric. And I do know that in some places they do have potholes, and what they basically say is that, you know, they don't fix the pothole unless a chicken will fit in it. I have heard that before. I think that was in Montreal, which was pretty funny. So try and drive around the potholes if you can. There's a fair bit of room in the lane, but again, don't go out of your lane to avoid a pothole. And as well, yes, if it is a fairly significant pothole, I would suggest that you slow down. But again, check your center mirror to make sure that the traffic behind you is going to be coming to a stop before you actually slow down, for the purposes of, you know, for a pothole or those types of things, because it's going to be an unpredictable action, because the traffic behind you or the driver behind you is not going to know why you're slowing down. So know that for the purposes of your road test and whatnot. Okay? You're most welcome, gaming. My pleasure. So I already mentioned to you that, yes, I'm working on the air brakes explained simply for those of you going for a CDL license, and it's at the graphic designer. We're just finishing that part up, and then it's going to go to the proofreader. And air brakes explained simply is going to be an electronic, it's going to be an ebook, and it's going to be available on Amazon and iBooks. So my hope for that book is that people will be able to use it on their iPads, read it on their iPads and go through it, because it has step-by-step instructions on how to do pre-trip inspections. It also has step-by-step instructions on exactly the words that you need to say for the purposes of pre-trip inspection on both a bus or a truck, an RV unit, or tractor-trailer unit as well. It has 100 multiple-choice questions in it, so it's exact information that you need to be successful and pass your CDL air brakes for the purpose of getting a commercial license. And that's, as I said again, I'm really hoping to get that up by the beginning of August for you. Is there a video for the procedures of getting pulled over by a police officer, Carson? Yes, Carson, we have a video on that specific topic as well. I did a live feed on that, so you can get a bit more information for that as well, in terms of getting pulled over by police. And just on that note, what I'll say to you about getting pulled over by police, If you're on a bridge or some other place that's not safe, Carson, just drive to some place that's safe, like a parking lot or a gas station or something like that. As long as you're not driving too far, not less than a mile, the police will follow you and it's going to be a lot safer. And the other thing, and one of the tips that I got from a retired police officer that I was talking to one morning in Vancouver: do not deny what you did. I mean, don't admit what you did either, but don't deny what you did. If the officer says you were speeding, okay, I was speeding. Don't say, oh, no, I wasn't speeding. Because they probably have you on a radar and know that, in fact, you were speeding. And, of course, be polite, because if you start mouthing off to a cop, police officers are much more inclined to write you a ticket if you're being belligerent instead of being nice. If you're being nice and, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, you might even get off with a warning as opposed to getting a ticket. So that's something that I always tell people when they get pulled over by police. If you start mouthing off, they're going to get their ticket book out and they're going to start writing you tickets. So always be nice to police and always try and move over to someplace safe so that you don't get rear-ended by other traffic and you're out of the way of traffic. And the police really appreciate that as well and whatnot. So there we go. Yes, so Corey got a bunch of videos up for you gaming there, and that really should help you out and get you going there. So that's a few tips and lessons on driving. Ronell, thanks a lot, even though I know already about driving, but still your videos are great as a reminder. That's awesome. I'm glad you're working on that and working on being a professional driver and improving your skills and abilities as you continue to drive. Because, like I said, I drove truck through most of the 1990s. I became a commercial driving instructor in 1997, and I'm still learning. I'm still looking stuff up in the Highway Traffic Act. I'm still looking stuff up in the driving manuals. I reread them, especially now the fact that I'm an international driving instructor. There's a great deal of information that I don't know, and one of the questions last week that one of the smart drivers in Alberta asked me was, could he turn left on a red light going from a 2-lane road onto a 1-way road? And yes, you can in the province of Alberta and in British Columbia. And actually, it was interesting because I was in Victoria with my friend on the weekend. We actually did that. It's a little bit strange, but you can turn left on a red onto a 1-way street as long as you're going into that inside left lane and not impeding other traffic as you're turning. So that was something that I learned, and actually I got in touch with Tim over at Drive Smart BC, who's a really excellent resource for information about driving and those types of things. So that's another good resource for those of you, is I promote Tim's stuff over there at Drive Smart BC. He's got some really great information. Hidayat from Pakistan. That's awesome. Good morning to you, my friend. How are you this morning? That's really great. Awesome. Ryan, I have someone I can get to work with me on that, and it will come the more I drive. Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. And like I said, there is the video there on judging gap, but as I said, it's an experiential thing, and the more experience you can get, and when I realized after I shot the video that when I was teaching drivers when I was teaching them how to judge gap, I was teaching them by being in the vehicle with them, and I would say, okay, now it's safe to go. Or if they were going and there wasn't enough space, I would say, no, you can't go, you have to wait, right? So then drivers would sort of learn that because I was showing them, and they were getting a sense as they were driving in the vehicle with me. So that's the easiest way to teach that to other drivers. Jim, how are you, my friend? You recently passed your license. Congratulations. Jim, thanks to you and your channel, I recently passed my license. And Jim, you're in Toronto, right? Am I correct on that? I believe you're in Toronto. I'm coming out that way here in a few weeks, going back home. So looking forward to that. So congratulations on passing. And have you gone for any road trips yet, Jim? There we go. Excellent. That's awesome. So, and for those of you watching on the replay here, if you're watching on the replay, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. For those of you who don't know, Smart Drive Test helps new drivers get a license, veteran drivers to remain crash-free, and CDL drivers to start a career as a truck or bus driver. So we do lots with driving here, and we try and keep you safe, try and keep you crash-free, and and make driving fun too, because driving should be fun. And just on the note of fun, when I was in Victoria on the weekend, I had to go down to do some work on my rental property. We went into the Maserati car dealership, and I saw the car that I wanted, the Maserati GT, which is the cruising car or the Grand Touring car. It's a beautiful car. There's no doubt about it. It's very nice. So yeah, if you get a chance, have a look at it. So Jim, yes, from Toronto, not yet. I'm working on getting a car on the road as soon as possible. There we go. So are you fixing a car, Jim, or are you looking for something that's inexpensive or saving up money and those types of things? Because that's often what's happening in terms of trying to get a car. So, okay, Will of Gaming, I have a question about getting a driver's permit. I'm currently unemployed and I'm having a lot of trouble finding true proofs of residency. Is it the same in Canada? Do you need 2 proofs of residency? Yes, Will of Gaming, yes, you need two pieces of ID. One of them has to be a major ID, is what I term a major ID, which is basically a picture ID, so it has to be a passport or some other piece of ID. I'm not even sure what it is. They will have a list of whichever authority you're going to for your license. If you go on their website, they will have a list of acceptable identification that you can use to go and apply for your license. So have a look at their website, and that will give you a list of acceptable pieces of ID in order to pass your road test. All right, so yeah, so not too many questions tonight. Lots of people are in summer mode with summer holidays and away they go and all those types of things. Anita, how are you? So lots of people, as my friend Tim says, lurking. They're watching but not typing questions. Yeah, I don't use that word lurking because you're not lurking. You're watching and learning, and I think that's really great in terms of all the people there. So Alan, you need a social security card in the States, so that's good information. And Alan, would you have any idea what another piece of identification would be, an acceptable piece of identification to get your driver's license there? Carson, what's a good, small but spacious first car for me and my family for from time to time? Carson, one of the things that I would suggest is I have a Honda CR-V, and you can still pick those Honda CR-Vs up, the older ones, and they're reliable. They run well, and they're inexpensive. So, they're not the sexiest cars, I'll tell you that for sure, because I drive one. And I call mine the buggy. But it's been a great vehicle. I got 2 children, so 4 people, and it is really comfortable. It's a good vehicle. It's not that big. It's fun to bomb around town and whatnot. So it's not, not the greatest vehicle on the highway because it's a bit underpowered, but for the most part, it's a really good vehicle. Other smart drivers might have some suggestions for you too in terms of vehicles that you can drive and get for a family of 4. So, yeah. So Will of Gaming. Will a state ID and one other proof of residency be enough? Yeah, that'll definitely be enough gaming there for you. And as Alan said, a social security number is what you need. So that's some of the stuff that you need for the purposes of getting your license test. And of course, you're going to need some money because it costs money to get your learner's permit and to do your road test. So that's a couple other things as well. So, just trying to think. I was going to talk to you about something else that had come up during the week that was relevant. But for sure, if anybody has questions, let me know. And if you like what you see on the channel and whatnot, and you have any reviews or queries or concerns, leave me a comment. By all means, I do my best to get to them and help people out. So Tommy says a Ford Fusion. I drove a Ford Escape for a weekend and found that it was easy to drive, but also had a lot of room. So there you go. So Ford Fusion and Ford Escape, those are both good cars and whatnot. So, Eric, if you have mail from the bank with your name on it and address, it works for proof of residency. There you go. So that's really great information as well. Rush Girl. Hi, Rick. Are there any laws in the U.S. driving with pets? I see dogs with their heads out the windows. I cringe. Rush Girl. I see lots of people driving and they have their pets on their laps and those types of things, and as you said, with their head stuck out the window. And yes, I find that problematic too. We have a huge public awareness campaign about distracted driving, and then you see people with pets on their laps and those types of things. And I think to myself, that's about the pinnacle of distracted driving. So, yeah, I find that problematic. One of the things, if you do have a dog, and one of the things that I really advocate for anybody who gets a dog, get your dog crate trained, especially if it's a smaller dog, because when you travel with it in the vehicle, or even if you have a bigger dog and you can put it in the back of a pickup truck or the back of an SUV and it's in a crate, it's much easier to transport and it's much safer for the animal and for you and other people in the vehicle. So that's one of the things that I advocate for people, is to crate train your vehicle, or crate train your vehicle. Crate train your animal, because it just makes traveling with them so much easier and so much safer and will reduce distracted driving. But unfortunately, there's just people that we're not going to be able to change their mind, right? They're going to believe that their dog running around in the car is okay, but unfortunately that's quite the contrary is true. All right. Tommy, there we go. Yep, good things. Bricks for wheels. Corey, I've heard good things about Hondas, the older Civics, and CRVs in particular. Yes, both of those are really good. I'll vouch for those for sure. Carson, should you confront a texter? No, Carson, I wouldn't recommend that you confront somebody who's texting while they're driving. Just simply maintain your space, stay away from them. Keep your distance and those types of things. Because unfortunately, the problem, Carson, is much bigger than anybody is letting on, that authorities are letting on. They did a study 5 or 6 years ago, the AAA in the United States, and in the previous month, 4 to 6 weeks, 66% of Americans admitted talking on their cell phones while driving. 33%, so 1/3 of the American population, we're talking 1/3 of the American population is 100 million people. 100 million drivers, so it wouldn't be 100 million, it'd probably be 70 million drivers. 70 million drivers in the United States admitted to texting and driving. So the problem is it's an epidemic. It's a huge problem, and unfortunately, I don't have the answer to texting and driving and how we're going to eliminate that form of distracted driving. The only way that I think that we could stop people from texting and driving is if we actually had some sort of device that as soon as the vehicle started, and I mean we do now have these apps coming on board, that it just disables your phone while you're driving, so you can't talk on it unless it's on a hands-free device. But then again, that's a whole different thing. And I mean, we've got the textilizer that's also coming in the United States, and there has been rumblings of the state of New York implementing the textilizer, which will give police powers to be able to tap into your phone and see if you were actually on the phone if you're involved in a car crash. But that has all kinds of constitutional issues that are being fought out in the courts and in legislation as to whether we are going to be able to increase police powers and bring in the textilizer, which is this device that allows, increases police powers. And I have a video about that too as well that I did a couple of years ago. I probably should revisit that because it's information or interesting information about something that's coming down the pike in future years about how we're going to curb distracted driving. Anita, texting and driving is all over right here in the Caribbean. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, Anita, it is a huge problem, not just in the United States, but also in other parts of the world. Tommy, you also don't know the mindset of that texter. Personal. Yeah, exactly. And that's right. And so, something about somebody texting and driving, if they're going to be able to do that, then it could also erupt into a road rage incident, and then then it becomes incredibly dangerous at that point because people get upset, and in terms of anger management, in terms of what they talk about, that is, 27 lizards and a 4-year-old take over driving the vehicle, and now it's a completely dangerous situation. All right, so I think we're going to wrap it up there for tonight. Congratulations to everybody who passed the road test in the last week. Good luck to all of you coming up in the next week, passing a road test and studying and practicing and whatnot. And if you like what you see here, definitely give it a thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up button. For all of you watching on the replay, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. And if you have any questions at all, more than happy to help you out. So thanks very much for showing up. Thanks very much for your questions, and have a great night. And we'll talk to you soon. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.